Viewers, we are honored today. We have honorable guest, Mr. Amjad Malik, a practicing solicitor advocate, and also former chairman of Board of Governors for OPF. Welcome in our show, Mr. Malik.
Good evening, Muhammad Nazir, and it is always a pleasure to talk to you.
Mr. Malik, please tell us about your views, recent changes, especially in Pakistani political arena, and you are also affiliated with the pmln. So your party has now prime ministership. So please explain the changes and what do you think about this political change?
As you know, Nazir, Pakistan is not an easy country to run, and finance plays an important part in it. The coalition government, which has come in power as a result of very destructive economy. And the IMF deal was being broken, and things were not going as per the constitution. So the PDM alliance put a vote of no confidence, which carried forward and gone through, and Imran Khan was deposed. And because this huge baggage of the previous government, so the new government has many challenges, including the challenge of reviving economy, controlling dollar, GDP, and also trying to have a honorable deal with IMF, because the budget deficit, whatever they have contracted before, they'll have to not only honor those commitments so that your credibility remains intact, but also seek a relief for the people, try to have that continuity, and with that continuity try to bargain a relief for the people of Pakistan. At the moment they are struggling because of the budget and other constraints, but I foresee a change once the IMF deal is renewed. Only then you will see a little change. Overall, otherwise there are many things to do, but that is part and parcel.
What were the political reasons that all of a sudden that the different coalition of parties, which is a huge coalition, and it is first time such a huge coalition came into existence all of a sudden, and they have departed elected government?
There are many reasons. One of them is that Imran Khan failed to work with the opposition. I don't think his credibility or credentials to work in a democratic dispensation were very high. So he never acknowledged the leader of opposition. He always believed that most of the opposition should be in jails on trumped up charges, no matter what is the charge, whether it is putting a narcotics on a current interior minister or land grabbing or anything. That he wanted the opposition to be in prison. Only then he thinks he can function. He has his own altar of high moral grounds, that he thinks that he is the only savior of Pakistan and all others are corrupt and they cannot deliver. So, but on the side of delivery,
mostly these cases were, initiated by the NAB, which is an independent institution, and at the same time, the trials are conducted by the independent judiciary. So, what function a prime minister has in these cases?
Well, I personally think you have Supreme Court, High Court decisions on NAB, which has confirmed on bail applications and stuff that the remand was continuing more than 12 months. NAB was only picking up people belonging to opposition party. And NAB chairman was allegedly looking as a front man of Imran Khan. He didn't leave any stone unturned, despite the possibility of coercively getting pressurized by the government because of his infamous video which came to surface. But never mind, leaving this public.
Very serious allegations, but the people
so once you have serious allegation and you don't leave the job and you continue the job, there is always a room that you are being pressurized to do a job for the government, what they want. And that's what happened. In 3.5 years, NAB failed to check government on major projects, whether it is wheat, whether it's sugar, whether it's land grabbing, whether it's million trees or Malam Jabba case, or heavy-handedness of the executive or the bureaucracy. NAB failed to apprehend anyone. Apart from that, NAB tried to put everybody who belongs to opposition party, tried to be implicated with the charges. Especially popular charge was the asset beyond means. And Mr. Akbar and all others tried to do their best to curtail opposition's wings and confine them to the courts and bail applications and charges and prison. And there was hardly any business of government in the parliament, because Imran Khan never shook hand with the opposition leader, never tried to consult meaningfully on any legislation. He was churning out legislation through the president office in the form of ordinances. That is not how the business is run. You need to make a parliament a functional tool to scrutinize government, to prepare and propose meaningful legislation, and also try to address the issues which are in your manifesto. Imran Khan didn't believe any of that. And when it comes to the results, they were not any recognized or worth mentioning project which you can say that this is Imran Khan's legacy. On the polarization, he trained his propaganda machine to an extent that by evening they can take down any stalwart hero to a zero through mudslinging, abuse, swearing, naming and shaming, pictures, cartoons. And there was not any healthy debate left between government and opposition. And in that turmoil, when economy was going down, he uplifted the subsidy on petrol, and everything was going from the kitty, from the public exchequer. And there was serious rumors that Pakistan may default.
This is the history in Pakistan. Whenever a party comes in power, they use their power against the opposition. So if we will look at the 90s, if we look at the subsequently what had happened, so this is the history of Pakistan, that every party who comes to power, when they are in opposition, they say, yes, we will reform the things. But when they come to power, they all of a sudden change their stances. So this is the history.
But Nazir, you are a UK lawyer and a very able journalist, I would say. You have interviewed many guests in the past decade or so. Yes, there is a polarization in Pakistan. Yes, the allegation and tit for tat exchanges are there. But still, looking at from this soil, looking at his bigger picture, I think when you come to salvage a society on moral high ground, you want to turn a Medina state, and you want to train people on according to the book, according to the constitution, that there must be something on paper that you can show that you have turned this into a conducive environment for public, for poor, or job opportunities for the youngsters, that so that they don't need to go to Canada, Australia, America, or UK. All that sort of things we didn't see. The kind of mudslinging I saw or I heard, it was not Medina state. That's what I want to say. Leaving Imran Khan aside, look at his administration.
That is a symbolic word, which is Medina ki Riyasat. But obviously, there are a lot of things which PTI should have done. But now I'm coming to the recent incidents, because you have mentioned constitution. Do you think that present agitation against the government, when the PTI leadership came with a lot of public protest, the coalition government has used of very severe forces and even, I will say, torture against the people who are doing the agitation? Do you think that it was constitutional?
I think right to protest is a basic right of every citizen, and that must be protected. But when your lot is trying to damage the public property and goods, and then you'll have to, it is the duty of the law enforcement to separate chaff from grain. They try to keep them away from the capital, where all the high commissions are, all the bigger constitutional bodies and the buildings are, Parliament, Supreme Court, and all other institutions. But they were adamant that they want to come here, and on the high horse of the KPK government and the machinery, with the cranes and to remove all the hurdles. But they tried to contain them. They contained it, but Supreme Court allowed them to come to the capital, and they freed them and they allowed them to come. But you saw how of Islamabad, they burnt. So what kind of agitation it is that you are allowed to express yourself? You come in Islamabad and you burn most of the trees which comes in your way. That is not the protest. That is not a freedom of expression. You do use your freedom of expression. You do all the tools. You are expert in propaganda. Look, you are an expert in propaganda. You have the biggest infrastructure on social media and Twitter and everything. You use those tools, express yourself, and come with the conspiracy theory on the streets. You are allowed to hold a jalsa in a park in Islamabad. You reject that offer, which you commit yourself in Supreme Court, but you go to the other areas, you burn the area, and you say that the government was heavy-handed.
But Mr. Malik, despite all these things, don't you think that the proportion of the force was higher, which I will say a law agency should use, or the police force?
Well, I would say freedom of expression allows everybody to express their opinion. Right to protest is a constitutional right that must be protected and allowed. Nobody should be disallowed not to express themselves. But while having said that, you live in Sheffield and I in Rochdale, Greater Manchester. We have seen these kind of tit-for-tat protesters and protests in our streets when people come and agitate. But state law enforcement do not allow to burn.
Because of time restraint, to a lighter subject, because we can carry on this subject. But now we are coming to another question, which is a constitutional question. PTI government, which was, a few months ago, party was in the power. Now they're not anymore in the power, and their stance is that there was an international conspiracy against them, and there was interference by the third parties within the Pakistani government. An elected government was departed. So don't you think that there should be a judicial commission? They can look at things independently and let the public should know what is the actual reality, rather than people are discussing it in streets or on social media and debating it on the television?
That's a very interesting question, Nazir. Pakistan is ripe for conspiracy theories. And if you go to different segment of society, they will say most of the governments come on the back of foreign powers, or in unipolar system, the superpower. But in reality, the governments come and go with the support of public. It's a parliamentary democracy, and public by vote allows you to come, and by vote you can throw somebody out. Elections are near in a year time or so. If you start dwindling yourself in the conspiracy theory and everything, you take it to the Supreme Court, and for the judges to ask whether there was a conspiracy or not conspiracy. I think it's a regime of parliament. Parliament through the National Security Council have assessed the dossier on this conspiracy. Your law enforcement and your bigger agencies have confirmed that the government has not been toppled by any foreign government, and it has been done by the democratic forces, and that's about it. Now you want to get it reaffirmed from Supreme Court. I don't see in this exercise what will you gain apart from playing the gallery. Imran Khan is up in the ring of election. He wants the election to be earlier. The PDM wants the election to be done when they have completed the law, which is they are in the process of enacting few major law changes, because they think that Imran Khan try to sabotage the whole lawmaking machinery through ordinances. So they are trying to correct course before going to caretaker setup and go to election. So they are trying to correct it through parliament, where Imran Khan is present. So far, he has resigned, but hasn't been out completely. He should join those lawmaking exercises, give his version, and try to make the laws for the better of the society. Go to election with that. Of course, he will go. He will go with this slogan that there is a conspiracy, that the government was toppled. He was doing fine, and he was toppled by American-led conspiracy. But I think there is not a meat in that argument. But because the bordering of Afghanistan, where Imran Khan is forming government in KPK, there is ripe feelings that if you go with the anti-American drive, you will get some dividend. And he's playing the gallery. He's playing to his voters, possible voters.
But at the same time, there was a huge public rallies all over the country. So it is, I'm not talking about KPK, I'm not talking about the one part of the country, I'm talking about all over the country. But now we're coming to the another segment, because we need to go through especially it related to your, I will say, favorite subject, which is overseas Pakistanis. Recently, the government is on the name of reforms. They are changing a lot of legislation, especially the right of vote or the representation. So what is your viewpoint, especially on the election reforms? Do you think that present government will allow the overseas Pakistani to vote? And will they allow them the representation? Because your party is also part of these reforms. So what is the viewpoint of your party and also your coalition partners?
Well, I personally think that to start with, we should have seats in the parliament. All the continents should have representation. We should have major representation from UAE, from where the labor emanates. Law of remittance comes from 7 states of UAE and Saudi Arabia. So we should have member of parliament sitting from those regions, and UK, Europe, America, so that they contribute from their experience, wealth of knowledge, and love for Pakistan. That is to start with. But also, the Overseas Pakistani Commission, Overseas Pakistani Foundation, the advisory councils should have a 1,000-member think tank, 500 each, and the overseas ministry should be run by people who have experience dealing with these 8 to 9 million people who are working abroad, contribute through 25 billion pound to the exchequer, and keenly observe, especially UK, Europe, keenly observe what happens in Pakistan. So they should have representation. They should go in these bodies, governing bodies of OPF, OPC, and overseas ministry should look after them. There should be international conference, look at the ways and means where we can facilitate. Coming to the right to vote, I personally think once your representation is intact in parliament, then those members should discuss this subject, how the right to vote should be exercised. Would you like to use your right to vote to have representation from UK, of a UK soil, UK representative? For example, Nazir and Amjad fight election in UK for 1 seat, and all the UK NICOP card holders or resident emanating from Pakistan vote for me and you. That is also a possible solution, that we send our representation to parliament who are UK-based people. Or
the voters, the people who are the part of this electoral college, it means overseas Pakistanis living abroad, they can vote for the people who are contesting within the Europe or America or Canada or we can say the Gulf countries.
So that is the idea. So you have right to vote. You vote for your local candidate, Nazir or Amjad. Thirdly, if you don't want to vote for the local candidate, you vote for a party, so that in overseas you can gauge whether PTI, PPP or PMLN is popular, which manifesto attracts you. But in the end, you get the seats in the parliament. I personally, for the time being,
Mr. Malik and Mr. Nazir both are not candidates here. We are just giving example.
We are not candidate. I'm just giving it.
Just for clarity.
The candidates will be most probably the presidents in these regions of different parties, like the last party president.
You wrote a lot of articles. You also contributed, especially when there was a a special government of the PMLN government, and you are looking after the interest of overseas Pakistanis. You contributed a very important update that the court and judiciary should take the cases of overseas Pakistanis on swift basis. So what is happening on that front? And also any other reforms you are interested, because of the time restraints, quickly, if you can give a quick, updates to our viewers.
OPF platform I use to not only try to give representation to overseas Pakistanis, but also address their grievances. So representation, we floated that idea in 2018 to give seats in the parliament. And to end the land grabbing, we said it's a three-pronged strategy. You computerize the land registration, you set up a tribunal in high courts, where within 6 months, with 3 hearings, you dispose of anybody who confiscate your land, your tenant is not going, your inheritance or divorce. As a result of it, any matter which comes to the revenue department or the land or agriculture land, house, rented accommodation, 3 hearings, and you should dispose of, and you can join the proceeding through video link. We gave that idea at that time. It's implementing in little form or the other, but we gave the idea that from a High Commission, there should be a hearing center. You can join in the hearing through video link, and local district attorney office should represent your interest. For example, there is a case between A and B. B is in UK. B is represented through local attorney, and you can give evidence through video link. This idea is in the pipeline. Hopefully, fingers crossed, when things get better through with OPC Punjab, this will be coming for consideration by the board to implement it, and legislation is required. But in the meantime, we also spoke to the Supreme Court of Pakistan through their judicial office, reforms office, so that until the law comes in force, the Supreme Court Chief Justice through Law and Justice Commission give guidance, instructions to High Court Chief Justices to dispose of these overseas cases very quickly. And they have formed, all high courts have formed their offices in all high courts to dispose of through their district and session judges the cases of overseas Pakistanis. So far, we are looking forward to have law reforms for common man so that your hearings can be disposed of. Like India has galvanized this support very rapidly, like Lok Adalat. They are trying to use the ex-session judges and try to dispose of the rent, electricity, gas, parking matters very quickly. You don't have to really run through the system 3-4 years just to have like a parking ticket disposed of. So they just do 200-300 hearings in a one session, and they use local dollars, your local representative and your local retired session judge sits in there, and they dispose of 200-300 cases in a sitting. So we also are looking ways and means how we can bring in law reforms.
Another subject which is part of law reforms, Mr. Malik, power of attorney procedures is very long, because if somebody has a court case, if he's sending the power of attorney from United Kingdom or for any Gulf country or Canada or America, wherever overseas Pakistanis are, it takes very long to register from, I'll give you an example, from solicitor, from the then embassy or High Commission, then it goes to Foreign Office, then it goes to, it's a very long-winded operation. So if, let's say, God forbid, if somebody's plot has been occupied illegally by someone, so in this time frame, the people who are doing any illegal act, the time is very little. So do you think that your government should introduce some kind of reform to make this procedure quicker or easier?
You have kindly raised this issue before as well. I think when somebody is UK national and doesn't hold NICO card, then you need to notarize it from Foreign Office. I personally think notarized from Foreign Office suffice, you don't need anything else. But when you are Pakistani national and you try to do a power of attorney to your relative, the embassy then meets that person and sign the document, so that there is a lot of kabza cases, land grabbing by relatives or friends, when you give a power of attorney without thinking and you cut your hands, and later on in 20 years you say, oh, I just gave this power of attorney only to look after, and the guy has sold this land. So that is why this caveat is there, but Shahbaz Sharif government has signed
Mr. Malik, once the power of attorney is
a ratification of the power of attorney regime. But like you said, if power of attorney of a UK national is signed and notarized by a foreign office, that should suffice rather than registering it somewhere else. But when it comes to the Pakistani national, then I think you need to streamline your system in Pakistan as well, so that your power of attorney cannot be misused. Even if it's misused, then your recourse and redress is so quick that somebody cannot get away with it. That's what we're trying. That if, let's say Nazir's power of attorney is signed by a solicitor, misused in Pakistan, the system should be robust enough that within 6 months you get your relief that, yeah, it's been misused, fraud has happened, case is registered. If within 6 months things are returned to the original shape. At this moment, your power of attorney is used, then you are, the likelihood of civil claim is 6 years. That's why we are saying they keep the check and balances so that your land is not confiscated by the rogue elements.
Once the attorney is registered with the consulate office or in any embassy, they keep the record. And now we have a very good digital system, so they can save it. It doesn't matter. If, let's say, it's certified true copy of the original is kept in one office, so it means the record is kept, which is for many years, even it kept forever. But anyhow, now we're coming to the end of the show. It's the last question. What do you think about the judicial activism in Pakistan? Recently, we have seen a lot of judicial activism. Don't you think that sometime in judicial activism, the body of the constitution, which is the separation of power, is compromised? And also, don't you think that the judicial activism must be reformed?
I personally think that, you know, they use the suo motu powers. There has been a lot of debate. I attended a couple of conferences in Pakistan, and there was a public interest litigation. There is a debate of to and far that the villages, they have miscarriage of justice. Nobody helps them unless you have this kind of a window. But there is also an argument that when suo motu is taken, your right to appeal is gone, because the highest authority takes notice. Once they give a decision, there is nothing left. And it is better to send the matter to the respective high court. High court deals with it through district session judge, so that your appeal rights is intact. So there is a lot of debate. But I think this debate needs to be carried forward on non-political basis through bars. Pakistan Bar and Supreme Court Bar should hold conferences, seminars on it. And robust people who have been advocating these kind of activism, something like Justice Jawad Hassan, they should come up and give the idea of alternate strategy, how we can do away with judicial activism, and how we can keep the, like in the UK, there is no suo motu, and people petition
1843 constitutional, 1843 article should be subject to appeal, because we have seen in the past that there are some cases where a very serious note, very serious cases, even the elected prime minister was sent home, but they were not given right of appeal.
But that is the extreme, that you depose prime ministers on 184. I personally think then transgression in parliamentary sovereignty. You'd go in the regime of parliament and election commission when you depose somebody elected. But what I mean to say is that judicial officers, this Supreme Court judges, through judicial commission, their own internal mechanism, they should sit down with the governments. And there is already a judicial forum. You sit down, you discuss what should be the caveat and precautions we should take so that this law remains intact, but we apply in a way that the miscarriage of justice is not alleged. So, for example, I take you a notice on it. So I send it to High Court, and High Court send it to the session car. But the time frame is within 90 days, they complete the period. Everything should be done and dusted.
It should be a serious reform. Mr. Malik, thank you very much for joining. Unfortunately, we are short of the time, but it was an interesting interaction with you. In coming days, we will invite you again, and we will have more discussions, more debates, especially on the subject of overseas Pakistanis. It was Guest with Nazir. Viewers, I hope you have enjoyed today's our interaction. Mr. Malik, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you, Nazir.